Okay, guys, so now I seen this article and I saw it and I laughed because the native artist who did this, it was an Alaska native, but they chose a trickster, a trickster to be on the USPS stamp. And I thought that was very clever and I thought it was hilarious. So I'm like, let me share this. The first USPS stamp designed by an Alaska Native artist features the trickster raven as it steals the sun. It says when it's released later this summer, a new stamp from the U.S. Postal Service will illuminate a piece of indigenous culture that's long been associated with an escape from darkness. Titled Raven Story, the history-making postage features an iconic animal rendered by Rico Lanawal, who is the first Tlingit, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, anyway, Tlingit and Athabascan artists to be featured by USPS. So the stamp portrays a blackbird grasping the sun in his beak as it breaks from its human family. The motif is based on the story of Raven in the Box of Daylight, traditional Tlingit lore about the trickster animal bringing the stars, moon, and sun to the universe after a series of heists. In a statement, World shares that the raven is a prominent figure in Tlingit culture, and the stamp depicts the pinnacle of this often recounted tale. He writes, Raven is trying to grab as many stars as he can, some stuck in his feathers and in his hands or in his beak, some falling around him. It's a frazzled moment of adrenaline, partially still in human form, as depicted, as his hands still being human, as he carries the stars away. I think it depicts the moment we all have experienced, the cusp of failure and accomplishment. So that's what he says. So I'm like, okay, let me look more into this, and I find out that this story of the trickster, there's different versions of this raven trickster story. Okay, so there's like different stories um, involving this trickster character, and I just think it's funny that this trickster would be on a a United States stamp. But let's see here. I'm gonna read the story. Um, well, one of the stories that I have found here, and this is on the First People website. Raven, a Tlingit legend. No one knows just how the story of Raven really begins, so each starts from the point where he does know it. Here it was always begun this way. When Raven was born, his father tried to instruct him and train him in every way, and after he grew up, told him he would give him strength to make a world. After trying in all sons of ways, Raven finally succeeded. Then there was no light in this world, but it was told that far up the Nass was a large house in which someone kept light just for himself. Raven thought over all kinds of plans for getting this light in the world. And I lost my place. Okay. For getting this light, the world, and finally he hit on a good one. The rich man living there had a daughter, and he thought, I will make myself very small and drop into the water in the form of a small piece of dirt. The girl swallowed this dirt and became pregnant. When her time was completed, they made a hole for her, as was customary, in which she was to bring forth, and lined it with rich furs of all sorts. But the child did not wish to be born on those fine things. Then its grandfather felt sad and said, What do you think it would be best to put into that hole? Shall we put it in moss? So they put moss inside, and the baby was born on it. Its eyes were very bright and moved around rapidly. Round bundles of varying shapes and sizes hung about on the walls of the house. When the child became a little larger, it crawled around back of the people, weeping continually, and as it cried, it pointed to the bundles. This lasted many days. Then its grandfather said, Give my grandchild what he's crying for. Give him that one hanging on the end. That's the bag of stars. So the child played with this, rolling it about on the floor back of the people, until suddenly he let it go up through the smoke hole. It went straight up into the sky, and the stars scattered out of it, arranging themselves as you now see them. That was what he went there for. Sometime after this, he began crying again, and he cried so much that it was thought he would die. Then his grandfather said, "Untie the next one and give it to him." He played and played with it around behind his mother. After a while, he let that go up through the smoke hole also, and there was the big moon. Now just one thing more remained, the box that held the daylight, and he cried for that. His eyes turned around and showed different colors, and the people began thinking that he must be something other than an ordinary baby. But it always happens that a grandfather loves his grandchild just as he does his own daughter. So the grandfather said, "Untie the last thing and give it to him." His grandfather felt very sad when he gave this to him. When the child had this in his hands, he uttered the raven cry, "Gah!" and flew out with it through the smoke hole. Then the person from whom he had stolen it said, "That old Minoran raven has got all of my things." Journeying on, Raven was told of another place where a man had an everlasting spring of water. This man was named Patrel Ganuk. Raven wanted this water because there was none to drink in this world, but Patrel always slept by his spring, and he had a cover over it so as to keep it all to himself. Then Raven came in and said to him, "My brother-in-law, I have just come to see you. How are you?" He told Petrel of all kinds of things that were happening outside, trying to induce him to go out and look at them. But Petrel was too smart for him and refused. When night came, Raven said, "I am going to sleep with you, brother-in-law." So they went to bed, and toward morning, Raven heard Petrel sleeping very soundly. Then he went outside, took some dog manure, and put it around Petrel's buttocks. When it was beginning to grow light, he said, "Wake up, wake up, wake up, brother-in-law, you have defecated all over your clothes." Petrel got up, looked at himself, and thought it was true, so he took his blankets and went outside. Then Raven went over to Petrel's spring, took off the cover, and began drinking. After he had drunk up almost all of the water, Petrel came in and saw him. Then Raven flew straight up, crying, "Gaw!" Before he got through the smoke hole, however, Petrel said, "My spirit's up the smoke hole, catch him." So Raven stuck there, and Petrel put pitchwood on the fire under him so as to make a quantity of smoke. Raven was white before that time, but the smoke made him the color you find him today. Still, he did not drop the water. When the smoke hole spirits let him go, he flew around the nearest point and rubbed himself all over so as to clear off as much of the suit as possible. This happened somewhere about the Nas, and afterwards he started up this way. First he let some water fall from his mouth and made the Nas. By and by he spit more out and made the Steichen. Next he spit out Taku River, then Chilkat, then Alsek, and all the other large rivers. The small drops that came out of his mouth made the small salmon creeks. After this Raven went on again and came to a large town where people were who had never seen daylight. They were out catching Ulashan in the darkness when he came to the bank opposite, and he asked them to take him across, but they would not. Then he said to them, "If you don't come over, I will have daylight break on you." But they answered, "Where are you from? Do you come from far up the Nas where lives the man who has daylight?" At this, Raven opened his box just a little and shed so great a light on them that they were nearly thrown down. He shut it quickly, but they quarreled with him so much across the creek that he became angry and opened the box completely when the sun flew up into the sky. Then those people who had sea otter or fur seal skins, or the skins of any other sea animals, went into the ocean, while those who had land otter, bear, or marten skins, or the skins of any other land animals, went into the woods, becoming the animals whose skin they wore. So this is one of the stories of the raven, and so, that has its own stories of how, the sun, the moon, the stars, and things came to be through Raven's trickery. But then I came across this other little tidbit of information here, and it says, in Northwest Coast mythology, Raven is the powerful figure who transforms the world. Stories tell how Raven created the land, released the people from a cockle shell, and brought them fire. Raven stole the light and brought it out to light up the world. Yet Raven is a trickster, often selfish, hungry, and mischievous. He changes the world only by cleverly deceiving others in his never-ending quest for food. And so that in this article here really stuck out to me because that is the colonizers. You know, that's the colonists. Like, they're tricksters. You know, they tell you one thing, they do another. You know, they smile on your face, they do another thing behind your back, and they do it to get what they want. And it's this never ending thing of they're never, it's greed. You know, they have a lot of greed. They're never satisfied. So they're on a never ending quest looking for things to consume. And that's how I view it. And I just wanted to share that story with you guys. And I don't know, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out Attic Indigo Shop and check out Kaona Shoes. The links are in the description box below. And have a great night, everyone. Bye-bye.